The Franchise Operations Manual is a critical tool to regulating the franchisor-franchisee relationship. And if you're franchising your business or you're an existing franchisor, we're going to do a deeper dive into what the Operations Manual is all about. The Franchise Operations Manual, it's the blueprint and how-to guide for your entire franchise system. It's the tool, whether it's in print, video, or uploaded to some digital platform. It's the primary tool that you as a franchisor are going to be using to communicate to your franchisee fundamental system standards and procedures. It's the how-to guide for your entire franchise system, and your operations manual is going to evolve over time. It should be getting better over time, provide better communications and better detail. So what is it? Well, the operations manual is the how-to guide for your franchise system. How does it come into play in franchising? Well, when you franchise your business, part of the franchising process, one of the most important things you're doing as a franchisor or soon-to-be franchisor is creating your franchise operations manual. It's equally as important as your FDD and your franchise agreement. In fact, when you franchise your business, some fundamental cornerstones or documents you're creating: FDD, franchise agreement, franchise operations manual. How do they interact, these cornerstone documents? Well, the FDD is a legal disclosure. We need it to comply with federal and state franchise laws, right? And it provides a prospective franchisee with a disclosure about who the franchisor is, what the franchise system's about, estimated startup costs, and legal obligations. The franchise agreement, well, when someone buys a franchise, that's the primary legal document between you as franchisor and your new franchisee. Your franchise agreement is going to say that the franchisee has to follow your systems, follow your procedures, and the requirements for establishing a franchise location. What you're going to find in every franchise agreement is reference to systems, system standards, and your operations manual, right? So within every franchise agreement, there'll be provisions that says to a franchisee, you're going to comply with our standards and procedures. And in fact, we articulate and document our standards and procedures, or we could call them system procedures, in our confidential operations manual. And we have the right to update our operations manual, and you need to comply with the standards we communicate and add to that manual. So FDD is a legal disclosure. Franchise agreement creates the legal relationship between you as a franchisor and your franchisee. And the operations manual, it's that information hub where you communicate your standards to your franchisees, and the goal to provide your franchisees with great information, great resources about how to develop, operate, market the franchise business. So that's a general overview. What topics are typically included in the operations manual? Well, from a general macro standpoint, it's going to be communicating to a new franchisee the process from the date of signing their franchise agreement to opening up their new franchise location. And in that roadmap process from first signing your franchise agreement to opening your location, well, you're going to be talking about things like who our management team is, how we communicate, the franchisee's contacts, training, when a franchisee has to complete training, what the training schedule looks like, including whether or not training modules are provided online or if they have to attend specific training at a corporate location, when they have to schedule their training, setting up their corporate entity if they're going to operate their franchise through a corporation, identifying a location for the franchise business. Well, if it's a retail brick and mortar location, there should be an entire section on identifying a location, obtaining your approval as franchisor, and those pathway issues from the date they sign a franchise agreement to the date they get to opening. You have sections on developing the franchise location. Besides build out, acquiring service vehicles, all standards, procedures, and timelines for developing and opening up their new location. And then ongoing systems and procedures for operation of the business, whether it's staffing roles that the franchisees should be filling in operating the business, systems and procedures in terms of supply chain and suppliers, processes for producing product, providing services, technology systems. So it's everything that underlies your franchise system. Now, when is an operations manual disclosed to a franchisee? It's disclosed after they sign their franchise agreement. So your franchise operations manual should be confidential. It shouldn't be a public document. And so what you'll see in every FDD is a table of contents to an operations manual, but not the actual operations manual itself, because it's a confidential document. So within your FDD, you're required to include the total number of pages in your operations manual and to exhibit the table of contents. Once your franchisee signs a franchise agreement and is bound to the confidentiality provisions of your franchise agreement, that's when you're going to provide them with your operations manual. Naturally, most operations manuals was a really thick document and it was printed. And when a franchisor wanted to make an update, they'd print out a new updated section and they'd mail them to their franchisees. And while most franchisors still have a printed version of their operations manual today, the format of your manual should go far beyond print. So most franchisors have uploaded modules of their operations manual on a digital platform. So not only are you communicating system standards and procedures, but you could have a more robust operations manual that includes videos and other interactive media for your franchisees. So, for example, if you're a restaurant, in addition to recipes and production processes, over time as a franchisor, you could be uploading how-to videos. The same thing with service-based businesses and brands. So, your operations manual probably exists in a place in print. And if you're franchising your business, maybe that's the best route for you right now. But over time, consider you're going to expand it to digital and you're going to keep modifying and updating your operations manual itself. Who prepares the operations manual? Well, initially, when you're franchising your business, it depends on how documented your existing systems are right now. So we have so many clients, they come to us whether they have one corporate location or multiple corporate locations, and they have really good documented systems and procedures that they've created for their own business. And sometimes if they have the availability, if they have a team member that could prepare their operations manual, a lot of times startup franchisors prepare their own. Certainly you could get guidance and take a look in FDDs about what are the table of contents that competing brands use and see the topics they cover, and also have your legal team consult with you about what topics should be included, what type of confidentiality statements, and how to launch that initial operations manual. Keep in mind, especially for startup franchisors, you need to look at your operations manual as an evolving and living document. What it is today, when you first launch your franchise and issue your FDD, well, you should expect 6 months from now it's going to be even better. You're going to be improving it. And in time, after 1 year, 2 years, it's a document that's going to keep evolving and should be getting better with time. And certainly evolving as you onboard franchisees, identify franchisee pain points or areas you need to communicate better. So it's an evolving document. Also, many times, if you're franchising your business, you could bring in an outside consultant or team that specializes in preparing operations manuals. So it's all balancing about what's a good fit for you and what your budgeting is, your availability of time to work on your own operations manual, and to understand it's going to evolve and get better with age. What you need to be careful of also as a startup franchisor is there's so many companies out there that sell very generic templates or claim to prepare your operations manual, but are not doing a really good job. They're really copying and pasting from other manuals, and that type of service and that type of operations manual can cause some legal issues for you and may not be worth your time or money. So operations manuals can be prepared by your internal team. You could rely on an outside consultant and team, but understand it's going to improve and get better over time. And it's something you should always be focused on and evolving and making better. The operations manual itself, it's confidential, right? So you shouldn't be disclosing it to the public. You shouldn't even be disclosing it to a franchisee candidate before they sign your franchise agreement. What are some topics that are typically included in an operations manual? One is an introduction to your brand, what your brand is all about, your core values, your purpose, what's unique about the business and the value you add to customers, and your philosophy about franchisees. Also, team values. Next major section would be major milestone. Think about it. Someone who's just signed a franchise agreement. Well, you need to show them the process and steps involved on where they are today a new franchisee that just signed a franchise agreement, to how do they get to opening up their new franchise business. So there'll be topics about timelines when a franchisee has to secure a lease for their new location or acquire a service vehicle, when they have to come to corporate training with you, when training needs to be complete. So you have those timeline issues that should definitely be covered. Then you have some administrative items, informing the franchisee about who's going to be communicating and working with them, who they should communicate with when they're looking for site approval, who they should communicate with in terms of scheduling their training, some information about setting up their corporate entity, and those timeline processes to get to where they need from an administrative basis. What's also included? Well, the substance, pre-opening marketing, opening standards and requirements, right? So for example, that the franchisee has to obtain your approval as to build out suppliers they need to use for build out or for service vehicles or for system equipment, all those cornerstone items, to pre-opening marketing, to maybe pre-opening supplemental training, and then day-to-day operations, technology systems, service standards, whether you integrate a call center, how they're going to send estimates, proposals, or front of service. So everything involved in day-to-day operations, including maintaining brand standards, approved suppliers, ongoing marketing, and things like that. So it's everything about your franchise system. Over time, your operations manual is going to evolve. And the most important thing to consider and know is that an operations manual goes beyond just system procedures and standards. It also plays a critically important role legally. So in your franchise agreement is going to be significant reference to your standards and procedures as contained in your operations manual. So today you may be using or requiring suppliers A, B, and C, and that's in your operations manual. If 2 years from now you change to suppliers 1, 2, and 3, well, the way you're going to communicate that modification is updating your operations manual and advising your franchisees as to an updated standard. So it's important to always maintain an updated operations manual, to review it with your franchise lawyer to make sure there's consistency with your franchise agreement. So your operations manual is a critical tool to managing your relationship with franchisees. It serves important business functions, but also is legally critical to communicating and legally binding your franchisees to the system standards of your franchise system.